there. Hello, hello, and welcome to the show. This is it. This be the Hobnobbin with Slim Man podcast, where we have conversations with creative people on both sides of the show biz curtain. Yeah, that's what we do. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. I am your host, the slimmest of all men, the Slim Man, Slim Papa, Showstopper. And we are coming to you today from Palm Springs, California. And today we are going to have a little chit-chat with guitarist Peter White. This is part 2, the first part we heard last week, and this here be the second part. Peter talks about his love for Motown and the Beatles and more, but before we dig in, let's talk about me for a while. Is that okay? Well, on Tuesday, or Tuesday, as we say in Balmer, Maryland, I drove from Palm Springs, California to Sedona, Arizona. You know, it's not a bad drive at all, slim people. You take I-10 east, and the highway cuts through the desert past the Joshua Tree National Forest, and there are like these sharp, like jagged mountains on each side of the highway. And the desert floor is just flat for miles and is covered with sand and scrub brush the size of beach balls. I mean, there are no billboards or shopping malls, just a lonely highway cutting through the desert. Beautiful drive, yes it is. Anyway, I got to Sedona and I went to my brother's house. He lives outside of Sedona in a remote area with a beautiful view of the red rocks of Sedona. Now, before I went to bed, I heard my brother's wife tell him to put on some shoes because of the scorpions. That's right, scorpions. My brother likes to go barefoot. Now, I rarely go barefoot because my feet are big and ugly like Sasquatch. But my brother, he doesn't like to wear shoes. He's kind of like Peter White. So my brother, the Slim Bro, put on some sandals as he was walking around the house because of the scorpions. Yeah. Anyway, that night as I was lying in bed trying to go to sleep, I was thinking, you know, what happens if I get out of bed and I step on a scorpion? You know, that won't be much fun in the middle of the night. Or, like, what if one, like, bites me in the ankle as I'm pacing around the boudoir? Anyway, so I slept with my socks on. I swear to goodness, slim people, I slept with my thick athletic socks on. I mean, I never saw a scorpion, but the next morning I did see a lot of bugs. I mean, a lot of different kinds of bugs everywhere. You don't see a lot of bugs in Palm Springs. But I saw all kinds of creepy-looking bugs in Sedona. I really did. For instance, that morning when I went to the back door, there was this big green bug, like the size of my nose, which is really big, as you know. And this bug was stuck on the back door, and I was tapping on the glass, trying to scare him away. I mean, not because I was freaked out about the bug, but just I didn't want him getting into the house and, like, chewing off my leg. So this big-ass bug would not move. So I decided to go out the front door instead. And I swear to the gods above, slim people, as soon as I walked out the front door, to the right of my oversized donkey face was a praying mantis. It was just a few inches from my eyeballs. Now, slim people, I'm a pretty brave guy. I mean, I've been in some circumstances that required a lot of courage. But if a praying mantis ever landed on my bare neck, I would freak the hell out. I really would. You'd see me running down the road with a cloud of dust behind me like the coyote in the Roadrunner cartoons. You'd probably never see me again. So anyway, I decided to take a walk. And there were like grasshoppers everywhere. Like these grasshoppers would leap in the air with every step I took, dozens of them. Now, they must have been training for the Grasshopper Olympics because these guys were leaping like 6 feet up in the air. I mean, I'm 6 foot something, and these guys were buzzing around my head like the airplanes that were buzzing around King Kong when he was on the Empire State Building. It was crazy. It's a buggy place, I tell yous. Anyway, that afternoon, I drove to Sedona. I was on a reconnaissance mission. I wanted to check out some jazz clubs and wineries. And I got to tell you, Slim people, Sedona is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, ever seen. It's also one of the most unique. I mean, there are these red mountains sprouting up all around. They call them buttes, B-U-T-T-E-S, and they're these like isolated hills with really steep sides and tops that are kind of flat. Now, these rock formations, they shoot straight up into the sky like a couple thousand feet. Now, maybe I can explain it like this. You can climb up a mountain, right? Or you can ski down a mountain. But these rock formations are more like cliffs. You'd need scaffolding to get up and down these things. And from the bottoms of the cliffs to the tops, there's this wide range of colors, like a million shades of red, rusty red, orange red, bright red, just absolutely gorgeous. Anyway, so I was walking around downtown Sedona. I mean, the main street is okay, lots of t-shirt shops and places that sell crystals and stuff like that. But the town itself is surrounded, dwarfed by these amazing red rock formations. I tell you, it's gorgeous. Anyway, I walked around, bought some postcards, and then I drove up Schnebley Hill Drive. Slim people, look it up. Schnebley Hill Drive. If you ever get a chance to take a drive on Schnebley Hill, I strongly suggest that you do so. I've done it, and it was one of the most beautiful drives I've ever done, and I've done a lot of driving, Slim folks. And, when my niece got married in Sedona a couple of years ago, I went jogging on the Schnebley Hill Trail, and it was seriously one of the most beautiful jogs I've ever done in my life, and I've done thousands of them. I jogged for 2 hours and didn't even realize it. That's how breathtakingly beautiful it was. Yeah, it was. Anyway, I posted some photos of Sedona on the new Slim Man Facebook page, which is @TheRealSlimMan. And I'll also post some photos on the slimman.com website. Anyway, that night, my brother, the Slim Bro, wanted some bolognese sauce, so I cooked up a big batch, and it was really, really good. I used the recipe from the Slim Man Cooks cookbook, and I made it with some rigatoni, and the shoe was so nice. Anyway, I put the recipe up on the slimmancooks.com website, free for all slim people. All right, a couple more things. We have some Slim concerts coming up. There's one in San Juan Capistrano on November the 4th. That's San Juan Capistrano, California, Saturday, November 4th. And we've got one in Wisconsin on Friday, November the 17th. And we have a Christmas show in Annapolis, Maryland at the Ram's Head Tavern on Friday, December 22nd. So come on out and see a show, will yous? What else? Oh, the Slim Man Young at Heart CD got released on iTunes and Amazon on Friday. So if you want to download a copy, I encourage everyone to do so. I mean, all we need is 1 million people to download the CD, and then we'll be certified platinum. I mean, there are like 7 billion people in the world today? Surely, don't call me Shirley. Surely we can get 1 million or so to download the new Slim Man CD, can't we, folks? Yeah. Alrighty, let's dig into my conversazione with Peter White. He's a guitar player. He got his start with a British singer named Al Stewart, The Year of the Cat, The Year I Got Fat. And Peter also played in Basha's band. You know the vocalist Basha? She's great. His brother Danny played keyboards with Basha. And Peter White has a solo career. As a matter of fact, he's one of the most successful smooth jazz guitarists in the whole wide world. So here we go. Are you ready, Slim people? Hobnobbin with Slim Man and Peter White. Do you remember the first time we met?
I remember driving down to Chula Vista one day which was just south of San Diego, almost to the Mexican border, and we did an outside show there. And we were both playing on that show, and that's the first time I remember seeing you perform or seeing you in the flesh. And I suppose we met that day, but I don't really remember it.
The thing that I remember...
I know you... what do you remember?
The thing that I remember the most was that first Christmas tour that we did together. It was me and you and Freddie Ravel and Paul Taylor. And
yes, and what year was that?
That was 1996.
6, yes.
And Art Good, the Catalina Jazz Festival promoter, DJ guy, he had put together this Christmas tour, and he had me singing and playing bass, and you were playing guitar. Freddie Ravel was playing piano, and Paul Taylor was playing sax. And I remember him calling me up and asking me if I wanted to do the Christmas tour. And Peter, I was never into Christmas. I mean, I don't know what it was. I guess it was some childhood memory that screwed me up. But I wasn't a very nice guy. I was just kind of surly and standoffish. And you were like Mr. Christmas. You were like Santa Claus over there. You were just so full of energy, and you knew like every Christmas song ever written. You would just like start playing it off the top of your head. And it was kind of infectious, and also kind of got on my nerves for a while, because I'm like, God, come on, are you kidding? I gotta, and then I remember we did a Christmas show at that place. Where was it? Where they had The Shining? They shot at the exterior.
Bend, Oregon.
Yeah, in Bend, Oregon. At the exterior scenes at that one big, huge mansion, and we were playing there. And they had a big, huge fireplace, and it was one of those magical nights. And all of a sudden, like the switch got flipped, and all of a sudden, like I'm like the guy in Green Eggs and Ham. I like Green Eggs and Ham. I was like, I love Christmas now, and then I was like, yeah, and I don't know what it was. I really got into it. And then we did that tour, and I got to admit, the rest of the tour was a lot of fun. I wasn't so much of a pain in the ass. And when I got done, I decided to do a Christmas CD, which is something that had never crossed my mind.
Let me tell you how I came to do that Christmas tour. Art called me up, but this is a year earlier, because there was a forerunner to that tour, which I did, and we only had like 3 gigs, I think. And I did it with Greg Vale on sax, Daniel Ho on keyboard, Rick Braun on trumpet, and myself. And Greg Vale's wife, Diana, would sing. But we didn't have a bass player, and we didn't have a drummer. And I remember when Art called me, I said to Art, I haven't played Christmas music in 20 years. I was kind of a little bit like you, the way you describe your reaction. And I didn't really know how to approach it, and I was being a bit of a Grinch too. I remember saying to somebody one day, this is actually me saying this, look, if I ever record a Christmas album, shoot me. Because everybody records a Christmas album, I just had a really bad attitude about it. I think it's just a cliche, everybody does it. But you know what? I took the gig because I thought, it's a gig, it's a challenge. Let's see what happens. And I started coming up with these arrangements for Christmas music that would fit my guitar. Some arrangements which I still do to this day. I have now, at this point in my life, I've done like about 20 Christmas tours. Yeah. And I love it. When the first gig that we played on that tour, and you see the look on people's faces and you see how they react, you're taking them back to their childhood, is what you're doing. And I got over myself.
Yeah,
I said, this is wonderful music. So what? If it's a cliche, everybody does it. But you know what? Let's try to do it in our own unique way. And look at the reaction we get. I play Silent Night. The Silent Night that I still do in my show today comes from that tour all the way back, the Art Good Jazz Tracks Christmas tour.
Yeah, I remember I decided to do a Christmas CD, and
Which I love. And by the way, every Christmas time, that album becomes, it's played constantly in our house, by the way.
Thank you.
And my daughter especially loves it.
Charlotte?
Yeah, Charlotte, who's 17 now.
17?
Yes.
You just had her like 3 weeks ago, didn't you?
Yeah, she's a wonderful, wonderful girl.
Yes, she is.
And the Slim Man Christmas album gets played to death in our house, and I love it.
I remember.
And I played on it too.
Yes, you did.
I played on it.
Do you remember the whole thing that happened? I
remember that I was recording in a room which was next to a beeper.
It was a song called White Christmas. I thought, perfect. Peter White will play guitar for White Christmas. And so I sent you the tracks. You played on the song, and you sent me back the tracks. And I'm in the studio, and I'm mixing the song. And every time the very first measure came up, da 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 da. Beep 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 beep. and I'm looking around like the room going, what is that? And all of a sudden we isolated the guitar track, and the actual beep was on your guitar track. So if anybody out there listens to Slim Man doing White Christmas with Peter White, and you hear a little beeping sound,
I have never actually noticed it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you managed to get rid of it.
No, it's still there, and we're going to leave it there for till the end of time.
I just always thought beepers were very annoying.
You know, I find a lot of stuff annoying these days too. It's hard to put down your cell phone. When you're doing a show like a Peter White show or any kind of tour, and you look out at the audience. So, most people are pretty respectful, and they will be paying attention, but it's like you can see the people because the audience is dark. You can see like the light from the cell phone lighting up their faces. So,
I'd like to see the faces, and sometimes you don't see faces. You just see the tablet where a head should be. You see a tablet. What?
Yeah. So,
who is this?
What?
And sometimes it's a whole row of tablets looking at you.
Now it's very easy to say what is so great about performing live, because it's the same story. You're playing your own music. You're playing with guys and gals that you love. You're playing for people that are there to see you. They're not just kind of walking through a bar looking at some bar band. There are many, many great things about playing your own music to an audience that is there to see you. Now, what's the thing that gets on your? Is there something that gets on your nerves about it? Do you know what I mean? Is there something that is like, I wish that,
about performing,
about the process, about the audience, about the touring, about hotels or travel, or this
is an interesting question, because no one's ever asked me this actually, and I'm always looking for a question that no one's ever asked me. Because most people say, what do you like about touring? And for the most part, being on stage, as you say, in front of people who appreciate the music, among fellow band members who are world class, and you love them all, and you hired them because you like them, and that's really unique as well, being able to have a job where you hire only the people you want. There's nothing but joy involved with all that.
Yeah, it's true. It's
sight lines. The camera thing, when somebody flashes in your face when you're trying to emote, some musical, and you get the flash, and it brings you back to reality for a moment, and you lose your concentration.
That
sight lines. I'm obsessed with sight lines. If I think that there's someone in the audience that cannot see me at any moment, it never leaves my thoughts. So I'm constantly moving around on the stage to make sure that everyone can at least see me part of the time.
You obviously do a lot of instrumental music. That's pretty much all you do. I know that you had Basha sing on one of your CDs, Just Another Day, which is one of my favorite songs. And my question is, you do mostly instrumentals. Have you ever thought about having singers or vocalists put lyrics to your melodies and do vocal versions of your songs?
this is leading up to something. Let's do something together, Slim. Let's record a song together. You know,
that was
because
no.
I'm very particular about singers, and I'm sure you are too. And when I asked Basha to sing on that song just another day, I was actually very nervous because I'd written the song especially for her, and I was nervous because maybe she doesn't like the song, maybe she doesn't want to sing the song, but she did, and it turned out marvelous.
It did.
But to me, there's very few singers that reach me in that way that she does.
Yeah,
and it's something
singers,
that something you can't define, you can't explain it.
No, it's strange, isn't it? Singers, if you have a connection with a singer, it really doesn't matter how great their voice is. For instance, I love like the early Bob Dylan stuff where he's singing and playing guitar and playing the harmonica. Not a great singer, but still there's that connection there for me. And I think that people are looking for a connection to a singer, not so much looking for the greatest singer in the world, but they're looking for a connection with a singer and a song. And I think that's what most people are looking for when they're looking at a singer or vocalist.
Yeah, I think we're looking for sincerity, something which seems to be real. Because anyone can go up there and sing a song. I can go up there and sing a song, and I don't think I'm going to fool anybody. The person that you're singing to will either see you and hear you just as a person singing the song, or by singing the song, you will transport them to a different place.
Yeah.
And that's the magic. And how do you do that? Because most time I listen to a singer, I hear a singer singing a song. Every now and again, you know, you listen to Sade, you listen to the first line of No Ordinary Love, the way she sings it, and I'm gone. I'm transported to a different place. I even forget that someone's singing. I forget there's a band playing. That's magic.
Yeah.
How do you get that? How do you recreate that? You can't teach that.
No, you can't. And it's
and
not
someone else could go up on stage and sing that same song, and it would do nothing for you.
Yeah. Isn't it strange?
It's magic.
It is magic. I remember we were out on tour, and I was going to send you a book to read because you had been reading something, and I said, I'm going to send you a book, and you said, I only read nonfiction. Was that you? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that was me, yeah.
So
I haven't read fiction in, 30 years.
So you still don't read fiction?
Yes.
So what are you reading, like biographies? Are you doing any reading? Do you like to read?
Oh, yeah, I that's all I do on the long plane trip, and there are a lot of plane trips, and there's a lot coming up, and I'm going to England in a couple of weeks, and that's a long plane trip. I was reading recently about the whole history of Motown. For instance, I read it from an outsider's point of view. I read another book written by Berry Gordy, who founded Motown, from his point of view. I read a book written about Marvin Gaye, written by a friend of his. So I'm trying to find out everything I can about Motown and how Motown started.
Why the fascination with Motown?
Successful. Because I love the music. I mean, you hear Diana Ross sing "Baby Love," oh baby. It's like, oh, it's all over.
Yeah,
yeah, I'm there. Whatever you want, I'll give it. Love the music. We will listen to the same music as you guys will listen to over here back in England. Then again, I've also read books about the Kinks, for instance, Ray Davies and the Kinks. Fascinating. Any book about any English band, I'm fascinated by. The early days of rock and roll, how it all started. It's fascinating.
I find the music business fascinating, and also biographies about singers and musicians and stuff. I read the Bob Dylan Chronicles Volume 1 book. I love reading about music, and it just tends to capture me.
Yeah.
When you read a biography of someone who's been through it and how they did what they did, it does capture my attention, and that's probably the stuff that I love reading the most.
Yeah, me too. I read a book recently about a guy called Bert Burns. Bert Burns? B-E-R-T, Berns. Yeah, a very seminal figure in the music business. He wrote a lot of songs, produced a lot of bands. No one's ever heard of him. He just kind of disappeared in the 60s. Yeah, brilliant book. He was the one that got Van Morrison started.
There's another
Van Morrison.
There's another soulful singer from the UK, a guy that's got a really soulful voice. There are a lot of them there in the UK.
Ireland, actually. Well, no, I think he's Northern Ireland, which is technically part of Great Britain.
Right.
But yeah, Joe Cocker.
Yeah, there you go.
Free. What's his name? Paul Rodgers.
Oh, I loved Free. When they first came out, I was like...
Oh, yeah. You know, I met the guy who wrote All Right Now.
Really?
He was the bass player in the band.
And was it Andy Fraser? Andy Fraser?
Andy Fraser, yeah. He was living in Temecula. And I was in Temecula one day doing a show, and he came to the show. He says, "Hi, I'm Andy Fraser." I said, "You wrote All Right Now?" He says, "Yeah." And he wrote it when he was 18. Can you imagine?
Yes.
If you had only ever written that song, you could retire today. You still hear that song every day.
Yes,
I
everywhere.
do. On classic rock radio.
Yeah.
And you know what? You can't argue with that. That's a great song.
Yes, it is.
A song that endures that long is a great song, no matter. No one can argue with you about that.
And it's all, so many of these great songs, like you were talking about with Motown, like you're talking about with All Right Now, they're 2-3 chords. Do you know what I mean? 3 chords for All Right Now. You know, My Girl's 3 chords. You know, and there are so many songs that are just, they're so simple.
But that doesn't mean we should be restricted to 3 chords, because if you listen to Beatles, listen to Eleanor Rigby. For instance, when that came out, I was just astonished. I said, how many chords can there be?
Yeah. And
in a pop song I've never heard, I Am the Walrus. My God, they didn't restrict themselves to 3 chords, which they did at the beginning. But this was what made the Beatles great.
But also...
I don't think it matters. You can use 3 chords. You can use 10 chords. But it's the way you put them together. That's important. And no one can teach you that. You know, they have songwriting classes. I don't understand. How can you teach that? But Paul McCartney's never had a songwriting class. He can't even read music. But he's written some of the greatest songs of all time.
The thing that really fascinated me about the Beatles and some of their songs, yes, some of them were simple and some of them were complicated. But if you just take a song like If I Fell in Love with You, da 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 da.
You've already modulated, and you're only 5 seconds into the song. You're already modulating to a different key. That's amazing.
You have 700 chord changes within like 4 measures, and it never repeats itself. They were so confident. Of what they were doing, that they could write an intro like that and never come back to it. Never come back to those chord changes.
That's
never
right. I've
use
never
them in
realized
another
that.
Song.
That's right. Never come back to it. These going, if I fell in love, and that's in a different key from the intro. They're in a completely different key. How did they get this? How did they figure this out? They took pop music to a completely new level. No one was doing that before. In pop music, in classical music,
very few people were doing that, but the level of sophistication of the chord changes was just, to me. I mean, even when I was a kid, I'm like, "What is this? How are they making these chords? What are they doing here that makes it sound so interesting and intriguing and compelling and different? But not only different, but different in a way that's wonderful and magical." And very musical.
There's a very good documentary about the Beatles I saw on YouTube, which explains this very phenomenon, how the Beatles changed pop music. And
what documentary?
Saved pop music. It's I can't remember the guy's name, but it's on YouTube. He's a kind of a Beatles historian, this guy, and he actually explains, and he'll sing and he'll play the piano and he'll say, "Look, I'll explain how they did this and how this is how everyone else would have recorded it, and this is how the Beatles recorded it, and they took it to a different place."
Did you see the documentary on good old Frida, the woman who was their assistant from the very beginning till the very end of the Beatles? Her name was Frida.
Didn't, but I want to see it.
A friend of mine was the producer of that documentary, and I saw it at the Nashville Film Festival a couple of years ago, and that was a fascinating time in musical history. the Beatles, the whole arc of their career. It was a short period of time, but what a they started off as one thing and ended up in completely different territory, which is something that a lot of artists these days don't do. They kind of stay in the same vein without really changing that much. Why do you think that is?
They had each other. I think this is a very significant factor with the Beatles. They had each other. Can you imagine that John Lennon and Paul McCartney and George Harrison, some of the greatest pop songwriters of our generation, all grew up within a couple of miles of each other and found each other as teenagers? That's just unbelievable.
I never thought about it.
They were
like
together
that.
since they were 17 or 6. I think George was 16 or 15 when he started playing with them. And they were together all that time, and they spurred each other on. They gave each other confidence.
Are they your
I
favorite?
think.
Are they your favorite band?
Oh, absolutely. I cannot imagine a world without Beatles. That was my musical upbringing. That was my musical education, listening to the Beatles. And every time they came out with a new song, my jaw dropped. Penny Lane. How the hell did they come up with this?
Right. And who came up with
the chorus goes to a completely different song.
I know,
and it goes to a completely different key.
Yeah.
How do they do that?
And all of a sudden, here comes
Day in the Life. I remember listening to Day in the Life and just being stunned. I said, how can anyone think it? I thought they were from another planet. I thought they were from the future. How does anyone do this? No one else has done this. What they're doing, no one else has done it.
And yet no one else has done it since, which is kind of crazy. I mean, nobody has really had that kind of impact.
Yeah.
Well there, Slim people, are you digging my chat with Peter White? We got more good stuff coming up, but before we dig back in, how about a word from our sponsors? Now, I've never made homemade pasta. I haven't. I might learn one day when I decide to make ravioli or tortellini or one of the stuffed pastas, but why make your own pasta when you've got the Cecco? It's the pasta I've used for the past 100 years or so, and it's available in almost every grocery store. I use the Cecco spaghetti when I make my meatballs. I use the farfalle a lot when I make my pesto, and I use the rigatoni when I make my bolognese sauce. I really like the Cecco. It's consistent, it's delicioso, especially when it's al dente. So, do yourself a favor, check out the Cecco pasta the next time you're in the store. It's in the light blue box with the Italian farmer gal on the cover. The Cecco pasta. She's so nice. That ought to be their slogan. The Cecco pasta. She's so nice. Anyway, yeah, are you looking to buy or sell a home in the Palm Springs area? It's mighty beautiful out here this time of year, and if you want to buy or sell a home, I suggest you reach out to Cindy Gouze. She's with Berkshire Hathaway, and she's been living in the Palm Springs area for the past 20 years or so. She knows the real estate market like nobody else. She's got years of experience, and she's the go-to gal if you're looking for a condo or a house or a vacation home. So no matter what your real estate needs are, you need to reach out to Cindy Gouze. Give her a call, 760-485-2505, or send her an email at cindy.gouze@outlook.com. That's 760-485-2505. Or send her an email, cindy.gouze, that's G-U-S as in Sam, E, @outlook.com. Another one of our sponsors here at Hobnobbin with Slim Man is the Foundation for International Aid to Animals, helping animals by helping people care for them. The FIAA is a nonprofit family foundation based right here in the good old US of A. The FIAA has pioneered sterilization and treatment programs for homeless pets and sheltered dogs, and it also helps people with limited resources treat and care for their pets. They've funded documentaries to bring attention to the problems of homeless and unprotected animals, and it's a real inspiration to see an organization that cares so much, that does so much to help. And if you get inspired, Slim People, there's a donate button. That's aidtoanimals.org. aidtoanimals.org. All right, are you ready? Let's get back to my chit-chat with guitar picker Peter White. What you got coming up, Peter White? What's going on? I mean, I know you got the Christmas tour.
I got a few more shows with the amazing Frenchman Marc Antoine.
Beautiful.
On the East Coast.
Back at
playing the Rehoboth Jazz Festival.
Uh-huh.
I know that. And Birchmere in Alexandria, Virginia. We're also going to Buffalo, New York. Haven't been there in a while. Then I'm off to England for a couple of weeks to do a whole series of shows there. I go there pretty much every year around the end of October, beginning of November. And first week of November, I'm always in London. Playing at one club or another.
I guess you're as popular. Are you as popular over there as you are in the United States?
Well, I would say the audiences are smaller. It's a smaller population, and I play generally smaller clubs.
Venues.
Like the club I play, the Pizza Express Jazz Club, holds like 115 people, and generally the clubs over here are much bigger. So yeah, it's just a smaller audience in England, but very great, loyal audience, and people who've been with me from the beginning of my solo career anyway. And some people remember me all the way back to Al Stewart, and I've been doing this now for over 40 years, and I'm still around, which is amazing.
Well, your family, are they still around? I know your mom passed away, 2 years ago?
My mom passed away a few years ago. My dad passed away around the time that Charlotte was born, which is about 17 years ago. I always have to thank him for starting me in music. He had a great love of music. He wasn't a professional musician, but he had a great love of music and instilled that in me, I think.
When you get back to London, do you see your old pals and your friends and your family?
Yeah, I try to. I have two brothers who still live in London. I see them. Danny being one of them. Danny, who was with Basha's musical director. And we get together, and he'll probably ask me to record something when I'm there. Oh, pull out a guitar and play this.
Have you ever thought of moving back to England?
Maybe when I retire, but when is that?
Yeah.
Someone asked me today, when are you going to retire? And I said, well, what does that mean? Let me think about that.
Have you?
Retiring means you stop doing the things you don't want to do, and you only do the things you want to do from now on. Well, I'm already doing that.
That's a good point,
so
Peter
I'm already
White.
retired, I guess.
I remember.
Yeah, think about that.
I remember one time when we were at the International Smooth Jazz Awards in Toronto, and we were backstage, and we were there. I was just hanging out backstage for about a half hour, maybe more. And one of the things that really impressed me was that you just seemed to know. Like I was just I'd mention a song, and all of a sudden you'd start playing it. Then I'd mention another song, and you'd start playing that song. You just seem to have an encyclopedic knowledge of the chord structures of every song ever written. Is this something that comes naturally to you, or are you studying songbooks?
No, it's not what you think it is. It's not like I haven't memorized these songs. What I've done is it's locked in my brain somewhere. Like, mention a random song to me.
Respect, Aretha Franklin.
Respect. I can hear it in my head now.
Yeah.
Can you hear it in your head?
I can't.
If I can hear it in my head, I can just imitate what I'm hearing in my head on the guitar.
I understand, but you, like, for instance,
which is how I learned, by listening to the radio.
But I can listen to Respect in my head right now, but when it gets to that little bridge part where it has the saxophone solo, I wouldn't know where to go. How do you?
Well, that sometimes, yeah, you have a little moment there. Oh, I know it's a flat chord. It goes to a flat key there. Which one is it? Oh, here it is. Oh, and you might try one or two. But when you're listening to pop music, generally, there's only so many places a chord is going to go. It's not that unusual. Now with the Beatles, we were talking about that earlier. Yeah, there were some unusual chord changes there that would take you a moment to figure out. And but you got to understand, Slim. I spent my entire childhood playing the guitar. Guitar was on my knee, listening to the radio, trying to copy what I heard, and that's how I learned to play. So it comes very easily to me to do that. In fact, one of the most exciting things for me to be on stage playing with a band where I don't know any of the songs. I love that. It's so exciting.
That's my biggest.
I mean, to most people that would be horrifying.
Me.
But to me, yeah, because I'm listening and oh yeah, okay, that's where it's going. Okay, listen to the bass line. I always key off the bass. Okay, it's a G, some kind of. Okay, I got it. Boom. You know.
For me, that's difficult.
But I'm not a bass player. A bass player really has to lead.
Yeah, I'm not a bass player.
You can't be following anyone else. So because I'm a guitar player, I can go. And if you're in doubt, just kick on the wah-wah and go chinka, 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 chink.
So you record most of your stuff in your own house, in your home studio?
Actually, I've hardly ever recorded anything in my house.
So you go to other places?
I'm trying to think of one song that I recorded. I think I recorded one song in my house ever.
Where do you go to record?
Well, my first album I recorded, my friend, his name was Skipper Weiss, who later started a microphone company called Blue Microphones.
Oh, yeah.
But he had set up a home studio in it wasn't even his house. It was another friend of his house, which was a few miles away, and he said to me, "Why don't you help me record my album, and then I'll help you record your album." So, and I only met Skipper because I was his neighbor. I'd moved into the apartment next to him. This is called the proximity effect. This is another reason to do. When I say do everything right, you have to go where the musicians are. You have to be around. It's what I call the proximity effect.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays they have the internet, which is kind of taken over. But in those days, there was no internet. So you literally had to go. If you wanted to meet people, you wanted to communicate with other musicians, hang out with them, exchange ideas, you had to go where the musicians were. And for me, living in LA, that was the San Fernando Valley, which is where pretty much all the musicians I know live.
Right, so
that's
the place where the Rick Braun and you and all the jazz, smooth jazz, contemporary jazz.
Yeah, Marc Antoine was living here. Before he moved to Spain? Yeah, here. And Paul Brown. I met Paul Brown, and he lived a few miles from me, and we recorded a few albums together, all here in the San Fernando Valley. Area of Los Angeles. So, you can't stay home and expect things to happen. But then again, I will say the internet has kind of changed everything to the point that people really do believe that you can actually stay home and do anything you want through the internet. I'm not sure about that.
I'm not sure.
I would like to hear your opinion.
I'm not sure either. I think that what happens is that when people tend to stay home and they're just sucked into that world of internet, of being involved in that. It takes them, it creates a detachment that makes it difficult in music, because music it's a community. Very, very few times does one artist do one thing by locking himself in a room and doing everything himself. It has happened. Like, you look up like Todd Rundgren, something. Prince. Todd Rundgren, something, anything.
Yeah.
Some of those guys.
It has happened.
It's rare because music is a community. You don't normally play by yourself. You need other people. And also, I think the most important thing is that you tend to lack perspective when you are in a room by yourself and you're cut off from the rest of the world. You tend to lack perspective, which is in some cases a good thing, but in most cases it ain't.
Yeah, I think you're right.
You know?
I think you're right. And funnily enough, I did record most of my first 3 albums pretty much by myself. And I go back now and I listen to what I did and I go, yeah, you know what? I could have used some more perspective here. I was a little bit inward here, like, oh, well, this is the only sound I'm going to use for this instrument. This is the only way I'm going to record this sound. Or I'm only going to use this instrumentation. I needed to open my mind more, and having other people around would have done that. But I didn't have the money I couldn't afford to hire other people to help me. I had no money to do this. I had to do it by myself. It wasn't by the time I got to do my 4th album, which was Reflections, I started working with Paul Brown, and all of a sudden my world started opening up to other people's ideas. And that was a good thing.
What was the difference between your first 3-4 albums on a smaller label and then going to a label like Columbia and eventually Sony? What was the difference in the recording process, and how was that different?
Well, I was starting to work with a producer, which was a really big difference for me because I'd pretty much done everything myself up to that point. The producer being Paul Brown, and then later Stephen Dubin, and the budgets became bigger, but then again, you're hiring a producer, so the producer will take the budget. So, the more money you get to make an album, the more people will appear to take your money. What do they say? It's like the vacuum. The gas expands to fill the space available, or something.
So even though the budgets,
that was the main difference to me, that I was working with a producer and getting outside ideas, and that was a very successful time. I've now kind of gone back to doing it more by myself because I'm not with a big label anymore, and I think I've learned a lot by recording all the 15 albums or whatever. But I still like to get together with other people, and especially when we play live, that's when the song that I have conceived in my head suddenly comes alive. When you hear other people playing it, and it comes back to you slightly differently than the way it was in your head. And that will give you a different perspective. As you say, if you lock yourself in a room and try and come up with some ideas, you're pretty much going to end up chasing your own tail and coming up with the same idea over and over again. You need perspective. You need outside perspective.
Do you still approach the music with the same joy and happiness that you had before? Are you having fun doing all this?
Yeah, I think, absolutely. And if you see me perform on stage, you'll see the joy that I have in performing the music for people. Because you know what? This is a communal experience now. We're all enjoying the music together. And what could be more fun than doing that? The one thing that I have lost, I will say, from the time that I was a teenager, is I've lost the ability to enjoy playing music for myself.
What do you mean?
Because when I was a kid, the music would be an escape from the schoolwork. For instance, now music is my work.
So what?
So to get away from the work, you have to do something else. Go out and kick a soccer ball, which I do a lot. So to me, I get joy kicking a soccer ball, which is such a simple thing. But you know what? The best joys in life are simple, aren't they? But I don't really sit at home by myself playing the guitar for my own enjoyment. To me, the enjoyment of playing comes from sharing it with an audience, and that's the joy, the same joy that I have when I used to sit by myself. Well, back when I was 16, I had no audience, Slim. It was just me in my bedroom, So that's the main difference I could tell you between now and how many years have gone by? 55. I was talking about 50 odd year difference here. But yeah, keeping the joy and the enthusiasm for music is the hardest thing. And if you know what, if I wasn't getting the feedback that I get from people that I meet at shows, what's the point in continuing?
Yeah, I understand what you mean.
If somebody doesn't come up to you at some point and say, "Thank you for recording this song, it helped me through a hard time," that's what keeps me going. If I wasn't getting that, if I was still trying to ram the music down people's throats, "Listen to me, please love me," I said, how many more years can I keep doing this? I would have given up a long time ago.
That's where I am right now, Peter. Please love me.
But you haven't given up, and there's a lot of people out there that love your music, including me, and love your voice.
Thank you, Peter. So whenever I would see you, I would always joke with you and say, do you have a sandwich in your pocket? You remember? Because every time
I remember that
I would see you, you'd have a sandwich in your pocket.
The last time we got together was at a house party for a friend of ours in Palm Springs,
Carl Davis.
And I remember bumping into you and I was saying, "Oh, Slim, wait, where's the buffet?" And you leaned over to me and you looked at me in the face. You says, "Don't you have a sandwich in your bag?"
What? First of all, what was the whole carrying a sandwich around thing? Was that just coincidental, or did you always do you have some kind of diabetic problem? Is it a health issue, or?
No, sometimes I would buy a sandwich, or I'd buy two sandwiches because I couldn't decide which one I wanted to eat. And we're always traveling, so you never know when you're going to need a sandwich, Slim. So I would just keep one in reserve, and just slip it in my bag.
What do you like to eat? What's your favorite food?
I would say that I know you're an avid cook. I'm the opposite. I'm an avid non-cook. I like Indian food because there's lots of vegetables and lots of spices and creams and sauces. I love that. And we grew up in England basically eating Indian food. If you go out to eat in England, at least at that time in the 60s, you were either eating Italian, Chinese, or Indian. And I would always choose Indian, so I like Indian food.
So what's Peter White going to do on a Saturday night when he doesn't have to play a concert or go to the studio?
I stay home and I'm always working on some new music, editing. I spend a lot of time editing. It's really hard for me to explain this, but I record for maybe 30 minutes and then I'll edit for 3 hours. But also what I'm doing is I'm relearning to play the harmonica. Remember, my father started me playing harmonica when I was, I think, 12 years old. And I used to go to the next village on the bus and take lessons from a guy there who was a really great teacher. And I recently found him on YouTube. I couldn't believe it. But then again, why should I be surprised? You can find anything on YouTube now. My harmonica teacher, who I haven't seen in 40 years, well, he passed away now. There he is on YouTube playing on the BBC. But I recently started playing again and actually introduced it into my show in a couple of songs. Because I was, for a moment there, Slim, in 1967 and 1968, I was the British Junior National Harmonica Champion.
Are you serious?
And most people don't know that. Yeah, I was, but there weren't many kids playing harmonica in those days. So I think there were 2 other boys in my category.
Do you know what's...
And I was better than them, so I became the champion. And sadly, I kind of gave it up when I discovered Jimi Hendrix around 1968. And I just wasn't interested in the harmonica anymore. But, it's a wonderful instrument, so I've been keeping it up now and practicing every day. And another thing I'm doing is I'm learning how to juggle.
Juggle?
Something I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to juggle.
Juggle like things in the air.
Like 3 balls in the air, juggling. Yes.
And you're going to work this into your act somehow?
No, because I tried that once. I was at a club in Fort Worth called the Caravan of Dreams.
I remember.
Where I wrote a song about it. And for some reason, I decided I was going to have a juggling contest on stage. Now, and I started, and I wasn't very good, but then some people came up and they were so much better than me and they could do it endlessly. It actually brought the show to a grinding halt. And I realized this is a big mistake. You know what? If you're going to do shtick in the show, and you understand the word shtick, I know.
Yes, of course.
It has to be related in some way to the music.
Yes, it would help.
You can't just say, okay, let's stop the music, let's have a juggling contest. This is in the early days. I really didn't know how to put on a show. It was a big mistake.
So Peter White is spending his Saturday night practicing juggling, practicing harmonica.
I will be practicing juggling, practicing the harmonica or the piano. There's now three instruments that I have to keep up now: the harmonica, the piano, and the guitar. So every day I might get to at least two of them. I don't get to all three of them every day, but I get to at least two of them every day.
The funny thing is yesterday, this is a true story, swear to goodness. Yesterday, I ordered a harmonica on like one of the websites, and I'm getting a harmonica in the key of A because I want to play in the key of E, and I want to break it out as a surprise when I do my Christmas show back at the Ram's Head Tavern in Annapolis, Maryland. When I do Blue Christmas, I want to pull out the harmonica and at least be able to take some kind of a short little solo on the harmonica. I just ordered it yesterday.
Now, do you have a history of playing harmonica? Do you know how to play the harmonica?
I've never played the harmonica.
So this is just an idea
in
your head that you're going to break out the harmonica?
Yeah.
By the way, and maybe we should end on this.
Yeah, we should.
Because you sang Blue Christmas all the way back there in the original Christmas show with Art Good's Jazz Tracks, where I really first met you and started working with you. I've subsequently started using that song in my show, and actually I got the cape and the wig, the Elvis wig, and the aviator sunglasses with the sideburns attached. Yeah, sideburns attached to the glasses, to the sunglasses, and I will sing Blue Christmas, and I use the words that you used. You'll be doing all right with that guy Peter White. And I'll have a blue Christmas. And it brings the house down every time. And that came directly from you, from that tour that we did.
Well, Peter White, thank you for talking to me. I do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy harmonica playing, juggling schedule. I do. I appreciate you taking the time.
You find out stuff that no one ever asked me about. You find out stuff about me. You know, this is interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody knows this.
Is there anything that I haven't covered that you'd like to talk about, or are we good here?
I think we're good. You know,
okay.
There's the Dave Koz Christmas tour that I'm going to be on. It will go all around the U.S. starting at the end of November. And there is a CD that we've made to go along with the tour with myself, Rick Braun, David Benoit, and Dave Koz. All of us are going to be on the tour together. All of us appeared on the album. We kind of put it together ourselves. So
wonderful.
That's something for me to look forward to. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, Peter White, I thank you once again. I do appreciate it. Give the family my best, and I will call you later. Well, that was a blast, huh, Slim people? Did you have fun? That was the second half of the Peter White interview. Now, Peter White, it's interesting to talk to him. I like the way he pauses for just a few seconds before he speaks. It makes you think that he's actually thinking about what to say next, which is okay for me. Peter's a thoughtful guy, and he gives a lot of thought into what he says and to what he does. All right, let's close the big show with a Bonafide song. Now, this is a song that was buried deep in the last Bonafide CD, which was called Bonafide. It's the CD with the black and white cover, where Bonafide is spelled out with silhouettes of naked women. Ooh, that's nice. Here's a song I wrote about my dog. A dog that I had for 10 years, a bull terrier named Batu. This song features George Hazelrig on Fender Rhodes and Greg Boyer on trombone. It's a song called Bad Dude.
Thank you.